What is going on, everybody? It is Gage and Brock here, back with another podcast, Tiefling Talks Podcast, for that matter.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you guys are having a good day.
Yeah, hopefully everyone's staying safe and everything. Hold on, I gotta open up this, there we go, commemorative beer. I mean, pop.
Yeah,
So,
come on. Non-distinguishable drink.
yeah. Um, so something I wanted to kind of touch up on, and I know we talked about it a little bit before, is kind of getting a plot of land for your players.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of players want to set up something like a base camp or something to actually return to instead of just being like hobos walking around and sleeping in taverns all the time. They have to have somewhere to like kind of settle down and call home, return to.
Right, right, definitely. And whether it's a keep or a settlement, a village, some type of deal, really what as a player, I guess, from a player's kind of vision and viewpoint, what's the most fun to run with? What do you like the most? Just having a keep, or do you want to manage a village and go through all the tasks that may kind of bring with it?
I think that really depends on the type of game. Like the game that you're running, where there's a lot of other aspects going on. We have to worry about like world politics and stuff. That really opens up like the rest of the world to interact with, as far as like creating trading relations with other villages and stuff like that. Versus something like our Friday game, where it's mainly about combat with a little world building in there, and just like tying into specific players' backstories. I don't really feel like long, like an in-depth town building set or like settlement building section would really fit.
Right. Especially with the Friday sessions where me and you play as players, one thing that I noticed is like, we got that town in the initial start and we became deemed lords and ladies of the town, nobles, if you would. However, we haven't really, after the first couple of sessions, we haven't had any like touchback back on that anymore. And so that's kind of, a little sad in my eyes because I do kind of like that aspect of trying to build something run down or demolished or diminished back up. I think that's where my love for a lot of these simulator games that are coming out now is coming from because you always start out with like a rundown gas station or a rundown farm and you've got to like fix the farm up and then you can start like actually making something cool out of it.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you mean, and that is a lot of fun too. There's tons of different stuff, like you were mentioning the old farms, old garages, stuff like that. There's just a sense of pride and accomplishment in being able to successfully bring something back that others had given up on.
Right. And that's something that I wanted to use more in my Sunday campaign that I ran for everyone. The only problem was that it was on a time limit, so there was only so much you could do, but it's definitely something I want to get a longer running campaign going for and kind of not have it be the main reason, but definitely have it be something that you guys are tired of doing main quest lines or dungeons and stuff, so you guys come and you guys hang out for 3 sessions and you guys just work on building up your town, your settlement.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like I know we were talking about earlier, running like a tavern simulator or something, just like those games that you were mentioning before, and that definitely would be a lot of fun to run something like that, especially with like the prior knowledge of knowing that's exactly what this game is going to be about, so we know what to expect and know what to bring in.
Right, and I'm actually playtesting a little bit with the tavern shop simulator type of deal, where there's no adventuring or anything like that. It is basically just a simulation of running a tavern. Obviously, I want to change it up to allow you guys to do other stores as well, alchemist shop, magic shop, blacksmith, whatever you guys really desire to do. Um, and it's the challenge is finding a good balance for multiple players because really it could be a one-on-one type of campaign, but I want to make it to where everyone can contribute. And I think that's where the biggest challenge is coming into play.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That's a topic for another day, is these single player campaigns, cuz they can be a lot of fun, but D&D is traditionally a multiplayer game. So where does one-on-one games fit into this this RPG world? Do they really have a place yet?
Right, and I think that's it. There was just this stigma about it, about you just being one DM and playing with one player. Like, I guess people just didn't care to do that. It wasn't worth their time, whatever be the case. But I really wouldn't mind if I literally had a personalized session for me like that. That's the coolest sounding thing to me. You know what I mean? I would love that.
Oh, absolutely. I actually had the chance to do this with a friend a while back in the Traveler system. We ran a one-on-one session for a couple of months, and albeit it was slow at times because, I'm not one for talking a lot, but when things got moving, it was quite a lot of fun because you could really get personal with what the game's contents were really going to be. You didn't have to go along with things that you weren't particularly interested in per se. You could be like upfront with the DM and say, "Hey, this is the kind of stuff that I really like from the game," and grow from there.
Right, instead of trying to make compromises and everything, the game is specifically built for you, and there's nothing to stop you from either A, creating additional characters to have in your group, so that way you do have that sense of a group mentality, and this way all your characters are singular mindedly focused on completing the same task, so none of them are going to hinder you from completing those tasks. Versus the other option also being that the DM puts an NPC in there, and while it is a little challenging running with another NPC, I find it really fun to have another NPC there to at least at the very least support the group because, then I do in a sense get to play a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons as a player, as I'm DMing, and it kind of makes it a little bit more interesting for me, and it allows me to interact with the players in a way that helps me better project my ideas or what this situation actually is, because there's a lot of times that translation from DM to player gets lost, so having a DNPC in there helps out a lot because then the party can turn towards them and be like, what does this mean? And I'm obviously not gonna have my DNPC outright say what the answer to the puzzle is or anything, but I'll have him sit there and be like, I think it has something to do with crossed letters or something.
Yeah, funny you should mention it because actually that was one of the characters in that Traveler campaign because I had wanted to play like a stealth based approach as a mercenary. And so the DM introduced a character that could act as a frontliner and as a guide and stuff like that, but still took like a backseat role to be able to let me explore the world, but still provide the support that I was missing, not having a party.
Right. And I just think that too many people get this idea that a one-on-one is the worst experience, and there are a lot of people out there that, yeah, no, they definitely prefer the groups. It helps them open up a lot more, but there are definitely a lot of people who are um, shy, or intimidated by the fact that there's large groups, and it actually makes it harder for them to open up and RP their character more.
Yeah, and it definitely is a shame because there is a lot of scenarios where it's a player that's like repressed but is really fun to be around. Like Nick in our campaign, for instance, using their character name, of course, was a friend of another player, Matsui, and was brought in a lot later in the campaign and played a character who had amnesia and like actually had not really a backstory, but more like a an adventure behind this character that we were able to unlock. But it just took time for her to get comfortable with us and kind of like be open to trying out these and like getting used to our group's chaotic nature and stuff like that.
Right, right. And I think I remember talking to Nick, and so just out of context, Nick IRL is a female, and she plays a male. And in the campaign, and she actually told us that the reason why she did this is because she was actually terrified. This was not the first time she's ever played D&D, but I think she said it was like a relatively still new experience for her, and she wasn't sure going into this, being one of only two girls in the game, that uh, you know playing a girl character, what exactly was going to happen and stuff. And she actually talks about it now, and she's like, yeah, honestly, I wish I did play a female character. uh
And our game has had a lot of like substitutions for characters. I can think of three off the top of my head of characters just swapping out. My characters came in Hamilton. Your characters, Gage and Vol, and okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just two.
no Cat and Drac.
Yes, you're right, Cat and Drac. And they all had their own reasons for having to dip out of this game. Cat and Drac was the first character, Katrin Kettleby, was a very law-abiding, like enforcer type character who
Did not
was,
work with our playstyle at all. We
oh
were
god,
chaotic, stupid.
yes, and well, we still are, but we're chaotic, stupid, but like pointed in the right direction.
Hmm. Morally
Yeah,
right, chaotic, stupid.
yeah, we try to be chaotic good. It just doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had that character. Like all of these characters had a reason for stepping out. Of course, Gage for reason that he just like exploded.
Yeah. Killed
Um,
himself to save the party.
yeah, that was hard on the party to say the least.
Yeah.
Um,
And that just to touch up on that for just a quick second. That whole thing was, it wasn't planned, but I felt like it was also a good move just going forward, because something that I actually found out later on, but I had already had like intuition about, I guess, was that yes, Gage was the face of the party right off the bat, leading the party, but I felt like Gage was also taking the pressures off of the party to actually speak up and have their turn to talk and stuff like that. And it's not like he was stopping anyone from talking. It's just nobody felt like they should step up and talk because they always had Gage there to talk for them. So I think in one aspect it was actually nice that Gage kind of went away, and I brought in a backseat character who just sits in the shadows.
sure, and I think Cayman kind of had a similar predicament. It's certainly not as much. Yours was a much more moral cause to bring in Gage, but taking the pressure off in combat as well. Having
Right.
somebody who could just sit on the front line and you didn't really have to worry about healing him, didn't have to worry about like anything basically. He just did his own thing. That's not really healthy for a party dynamic. Like there's got to be some kind of drama, some kind of like pressure.
Right. To push people to kind of open up and really step into their characters and roles. You can't, even if they're not willing to do it, and they're not speaking up, you have to recognize that you obviously don't want to make them uncomfortable, but you don't want to make them comfortable in the sense that they can just constantly rely on you to do all the talking or you to do all the fighting.
No, definitely. Yeah, there's got to be some sort of party balance and helping these other people. Going back to the Nick predicament, having her able to like take a more forward role, especially interacting with the few characters that actually were in her backstory. That really was helpful in kind of fleshing out both her as a player and her as a character.
Right, right. And that's kind of one of the other aspects of that, is that, when you have too much of something for your character, it's typically a bad thing, because that means that your character, yes, excels in this one area, but it means that you're overshadowing the opportunities for every other person in your party to do something.
Definitely. Like for instance, if you're trying to infiltrate a town that's taken over by hostiles or something like that, and yes, I'm taking notes from our Sunday game, having just one rogue there, they're really the only ones that can go in stealthily to take care of this problem. So it kind of creates a dilemma there of the other characters just having to idly wait while the rogue goes and does his rogue things.
Right. And, that's not to say that each character doesn't deserve their moment in the spotlight, but it's also with a grain of salt of, okay, well, what are they going to do? Go in there and take out the entire town, come out? Like, you're not going to have everyone sitting there the entire time, or B, have them run in with the rogue and reveal the rogue's position. So you got to find a good balance between giving people their moments, but also making sure that all the moments don't go to that person.
Yes, definitely.
And kind of rotating back around to what we were originally talking about, um, encampments and kind of just owning a piece of land. The biggest thing is trying to find something that the party all is going to be comfortable with, and then something that everyone can contribute to. If you think that owning a settlement is going to be too much, I think that a keep is probably more along the lines of, hey, just a place to go back, relax, hang out, do our thing.
Yeah, that would certainly allow for some level of like the home feeling that we were kind of shooting for without the pressure of now there's expenses you have to worry about, like owning a home or something like that. It's
Right.
the argument of renting versus owning,
Right.
basically, for real homes.
Yeah, definitely. And like without, or I should say, with having a keep instead of a kind of plot of land, you no longer have to worry about, okay, what am I doing with this land? Am I going to farm it, make money off of it? Am I going to set up shops? Am I going to do this, that? Whereas with a keep, if your game is primarily focused on going out adventuring, looting, dungeons, missions, stuff like that, then it keeps perfect. It's fine. You could even get a little you can upgrade it to a castle or whatever, um or just like a building in town that has 6 rooms and stuff like that. But keep it something similar to that. You always just want to look at what your players are looking to do initially, and that's something that should be addressed in the beginning. Is, hey, are you guys just gonna be interested in playing the game for the loot, the dungeons, stuff like that, or are you guys looking to really invest into the world? And obviously keep up to date with them, ask them questions frequently as the sessions go on to kind of make sure they're still in the same space, because everybody's opinions change as time goes on.
Yeah, that's definitely something a lot of DMs that I've seen unfortunately miss is, some DMs they'll run like the session zero. That's the big thing here. Is a lot of DMs will run a session zero, but they'll make it all about character building. And they'll make it all about one or the other instead of making characters that fit into this world, that fit into the narrative, or making a narrative that fit around the characters. They're self inserts, like running into a mod or running a module of some kind
Right.
where it's just the one dimension of, okay, your character encounters this pre-written thing, what does it do, as opposed to why would it do this, what ties does it have to the world.
Yeah, and that's what kind of, I'm not going to say I pride myself on doing that. It's not something I do often, or not something I don't do often. But that's why I like during session zeros, the first half of it, yes, it's towards teaching you how to use the programs I use. It's towards getting to know the characters a little bit, helping work on characters. And then the second half is we play for an hour and a half. This allots enough time to kind of step into the role of your characters, taste a little bit of combat perhaps, and then wrap it up with some more role playing to kind of get a sense of these characters. Because once I have a sense of these characters, I can then kind of look at it and be like, okay, cool, so tell me a little bit more about what you want your character to do. What kind of city were they from? What kind of personality do they have? What was this, that? And then from there, I craft a backstory giving you the name of your town, where you grew up, who you were friends with, and then from there you can kind of fill in the details. So for instance, one of my players reached out and was like, "Hey, yeah, I'm a half elf, but I left my race family to go and stay with humans in a town. Then I figured that wasn't for me, and I wanted to stay in the woods. Do you got anything for that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, 100%. I'm always going to find a way to make your character fit into the world, or make the world kind of fit around your character, because that's part of it. I'm telling a story, yes, but this is your story when you're playing it. You are living this. I want you guys to feel like you guys have a stake in it."
Oh, definitely, yeah, because a character without like an invested player behind it is just empty. There's not a character there anymore. It's just a character sheet. It's just words on a piece of paper. There's no emotional investment behind it. There's no drive. There's no fear for the character. None of that. You lose what makes a role playing game a role playing game.
Right. And that's something that I could never stand is, when I've got people that I'm just talking, normal everyday people that are in the game and, they're on their phone or whatever. It means that that they are either not invested or there's not like a big enough connection for them, or B, it means that they are the type of person that if it's not all about them, they just don't care. And those are the type of people that probably would benefit the most from the one-on-one campaigns.
Yeah, and there definitely is a type of person that would much prefer the one on one campaigns, but they should stick to one on one campaigns as opposed to doing the wow words as opposed to doing the usual 5e experience of being a team player and just pretending to fill that role. Just be who you actually are instead of trying to fill a role that you're not, because then you're hurting everybody in trying to do that.
Right, definitely. When you're sitting there and you're constantly having to ask, "Oh, what'd you say? What was this? What happened?" And you're not paying attention because either you're not invested or it's just there's not enough you time in there, then you are subtracting from the group as a whole because yeah, the group wants to move on and do other things, but they're constantly having to backtrack for that one player. And I'm not saying that, you're a bad player and you should never play D&D. I think you should look for something a little bit more personal, something a little bit more kind of working hand in hand with what you are looking for from a Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop game in general experience. I definitely believe that everyone can find something they love. You just got to look for it. And, if it's not right for you, there's no reason to be mean or hostile or anything. Just simply be like, hey, it's not working out for me. I'm just gonna look for something else. Want to thank you for your time. Move on. There's no hard feelings. There should never be hard feelings with a player comes or goes playing in any type of campaign or session because it's a game. You're here to have fun.
Right. And if you're not having fun, then playing the game is just, it goes back to being a detriment to everybody because we were all trying to have a good time, and one player kind of being a drag on the rest of the party, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't work for everybody. It creates, again, a scenario that nobody wants to be a part of.
Right. And I get it. There is what they call the Matt Mercer syndrome and stuff like that, and it's you got to take it with a grain of salt. Matt Mercer's great DM, love his content, love when he does his sessions and stuff, but that's not what these standards should be. That is not what you should expect going into a campaign. You should not expect your DM to give out every sound effect like you hear the clashing of 1,000 men as they march across the battlefield. Like that's don't expect that from every DM because there are a lot of new DMs. There are a lot of people trying to fill roles of DMs that weren't previously privy to thinking they were going to be a DM until their group was like, "We can't find one. You want to be DM?" And so there's a lot of people trying to fill these roles to make it a fun game to play. So just keep that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. Yes, if you come from a certain source, double check, look at other sources because no DM is the same. You will hardly ever find two similar DMs with the same play styles, the same methods, and the same kind of programs and stuff.
Yeah, that's honestly the biggest lesson is going into a game with the expectations of another game is not going to work out. That just go play your own game at that point, because you're
Right,
trying to imprint another DM style onto your DM. He's just there to have fun too.
right. And at the end of the day, unless you're a professional GM or DM and you're doing it for some sort of monetary gain, um, you know, don't sit there and or don't go in there expecting to have some type of way because more times than not the professional GM or DM will tell you up front, hey, this is my GM style, this is kind of how I play, this is what I do. And they'll set the expectations, and from that point on, yes, play through their session 0 or their first session, whichever one kind of lets you kind of step into their world, and then from there decide whether it's a good fit for you. That's what session 0 and 1 are for. It's for that kind of um, fitting and adjusting. It's just like I'm a safety manager in real life, and we have to do these fit tests for masks. I'm not going to make somebody wear a mask that doesn't fit, because all they're going to do is put their own life in danger.
That's very true. It all comes down to the person and being able to match the game.
Right. And there are hundreds upon thousands of tables out there for you to look into, and hundreds and thousands of forums to look into. If you're cool with it, Brock, I can actually send you a link for a few of them. We'll put them in the description below, so that way you guys can look at the Looking for Groups forums, and if by some crazy chance the podcast does get big, you guys will be able to use that as a reference to find different games to play. You don't always have to pay for an experience, but when you do that, you're typically paying for something, so those GMs are looking to more tailor fit the game to you guys, versus
Yeah,
you guys just going into a free to play game and getting kind of what the DM is trying to do.
yeah, and honestly, the biggest one is going to be where we met, r/LFG, r/looking for game.
Yep,
It's
yep.
just a massive community of a lot of like-minded players who just have a love for the game, and that's honestly all you need to get started. You just have to enjoy the game, enjoy the world, enjoy what your DM can put out. That's what you're looking for. That's a wholesome game.
Right, and you can scour through the forums, find good stuff, find something that matches your play style, or maybe matches what your expectations are, and kind of just get the ball rolling there. And from there, I mean, you don't really even have to join the game. You can just message the person saying, "Hey, I'm interested. Can you tell me a little bit more?" Like, ask what their play style is, ask if they're friendly to new players, if they have the patience for new players. A lot of times they'll list it, but if they don't, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, and man, just the people you meet on there really just blow me away because you get a lot of people, unfortunately, who can be toxic, but then you get a lot of people that are like us and end up sticking together for arguably too long to be sane. But
Yeah, no, we're all a little dumb and a little crazy.
oh yeah, you'll float too down here.
Yeah, no kidding. We just all kind of, I don't know, all our senses of humors kind of match up enough. Drek kind of just puts up with it. But the rest of us are all kind of really, really good at making some jokes, laughing, having a good time, and at the end of the day, I would say our Friday sessions are literally 50% playing actual Dungeons and Dragons and 50% making jokes, laughing for 5 minutes, then getting back to D&D.
And that's you guys are the best bunch of idiots I could ever ask for.
Yeah, I love it. I wouldn't have wanted any other kind of first big group game for me to jump into. Dungeons and Dragons have been uh, no other group could have given me the experience that you guys have, and given me the joy and the looking forward to Fridays that the Friday campaign people have.
Well, enough gushing about our Friday game. Let's talk a little bit about the some of the new D&D Wizards of the Coast releases, namely the UA that just came out for the Heroes of Corrine.
Yikes.
Yes, that was my first impression as well.
Yeah. DM, yes, a Dungeon Masters Facebook group I'm part of. I'm in there to kind of get advice and kind of see what other people are talking about, and kind of get like, it also helps with looking at like homebrewed rules that kind of make the world maybe either more realistic or something cool, stuff like that. But occasionally they do talk about new content, and one of them posted about it, and the first comment was, I don't think I've seen a single DM yet say that they are ready to put this into their campaign, and a lot of negative comments about it underneath as well, because people are just not that into it.
Yeah. On the player's side, I've seen a lot of people who want to run this, of course, because it's stupidly strong.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of balancing would have to go into this in order for it to be be easy for the DM to manage, because it's at its face value right now. I would say this is the same level, if not worse, than game breaking as Tasha's.
I wouldn't put it quite as high as Tasha's, but I will say if you're running any kind of economy in your world, short of running prices right out of the books, you're going to have a really hard time with this just because of the new race's ability to just pull stuff out of their asses.
Yeah, the
Like
Kender
the
Aces.
Yes, the Kender aces. The first ace, pull out 5d6 gold that just lasts for an hour. It doesn't say that it's any kind of like magically looking gold or anything like that, aside from glimmering softly, but gold glimmers softly. So if you're pulling like a commoner's salary just randomly out of your ass up to 6 times a day, that could really upset a town, especially if it disappears after an hour. That can
Right.
lead to a lot of very angry shopkeepers.
And it's totally cool to do this if you're playing some sort of chaotic evil campaign. Sure, rob the town blind of all its currency and really upset the economic balance of things. Um, but man, there's not a lot that if you're running with the base gold, copper, silver type system, there's not much that you wouldn't be able to pick up for this amount of gold. You can get, what is that, up to probably what, 30 gold pieces? No, more than that, right?
No,
No,
it is
30.
5d6 is 30.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so 30 gold pieces, considering that what a meal is like 3 copper pieces or something, you know,
Yeah.
there's not much that you wouldn't be able. Yeah, give me this, give me a sword, this and that. There's not a lot that you could or you would be turned away from getting. You know,
Yeah, definitely. And that's going to cause a lot of problems because you're going to be seen either around town, you're going to be seen as basically nobility or basically trash. And it all depends on whether you get caught. And
right?
it's not a good dynamic to have because every Kender, and this is just taking it at face value, making stereotypes like I do. Every Kender's going to play a rogue, every Kender's going to be completely edgy, and they're all just going to use these Kender aces and whatever they pull, like trinkets, a crowbar, a choice from the tools table, it's going to be thieves tools.
Yeah,
And you are just going to be the ultimate stealthy thief with this.
right. Grappling hook. You can also get one item of your choice from the adventuring gear table in the player's handbook. That's nuts.
Yeah, because adventuring gear carries a lot of stuff, and a lot of people underestimate your 10-foot pole, your 50 feet of hemp rope. The basic stuff can really have a large impact if not monitored.
Right, and me knowing you being a min maxer, I know that this stuff, if you take this unchecked, you are going to destroy campaigns with just the amount of overpowered kind of stuff you'll be able to inflate with all these extra little abilities.
And that's why I'm glad that we're looking at this now, because if I had taken this before reading it all the way through and seen that, there would have been unfortunate incidents. But yeah, this is warning to any DMs who consider running this. Don't.
Right, wait till it gets balanced at least a lot. Um, if you really want to, try and find your own way of balancing it, pop it in. Oh, excuse me. Try it out, see what happens, but more times than not, I'm figuring until this gets balanced, there's going to be a lot of, especially if you're dealing with a min maxer or even a rules lawyer, someone who's able to kind of look at loopholes, look at wording, stuff like that. They're going to be able to take this and really trash some stuff. Now, I'm hoping that, if you're putting this into an already existing campaign, then, you know all your players well enough to know that they're not trying to actively sabotage your campaign like we do on Fridays. Um,
Well, I mean, that's consensual sabotage.
yeah, that's true. But if you're planning on running a new campaign with this, I would say run a totally new campaign that you don't mind throwing away after 2 to 3 sessions because, let it play out. See what happens. Yeah, maybe nobody runs away with any of these abilities and destroys all the hard work you put in. But in the off chance that they do, it's better to have a short term campaign to run these through and really see for yourself, hey, that either doesn't work or hey, I could change this and it would work.
Yeah, even if you take your regular group through like a pre-written module or something, take them through Storm King's Thunder and allow these. Just take like I actually personally haven't run through Storm King's Thunder, Storm King's Thunder. God, in a very long time, so I don't quite remember how long it takes, but I mean, even figure 7 to 10 sessions. That should be plenty of time to work out the kinks in this to be able to introduce it into your main game.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And if you want to look at doing maybe some not high level games because most games usually cut off around 15 or so, but run something around 10, 12 area so that way you can see what their extra abilities will kind of go towards putting in and what they will kind of develop for you later on down the road because, obviously you don't want to play for a couple of sessions at level 1, get them to level 3 and be like, yeah, it works, throw it in, and then at level 6 they get their 6th level special ability and all of a sudden it's, oh my god, everything's on fire, that town is completely upside down, this and that, what's the moon doing?
Yeah, because I mean, here's the thing: is pulling off the Kender Aces table once a day or twice a day, rather, because it's proficiency bonus scaling. Twice a day shouldn't be like horrible. I mean, again, they're level 1 and they could pull 60 gold out of nowhere, which is it's sizable, but it's something that you could manage by, for instance, adopting a gold only system like we do in a lot of our campaigns just to make transactions easier and just scale up the costs of everything to match the player's current gold amounts so that this person that's running around with an extra 60 gold on demand or magic items on demand, or sorry, adventuring gear on demand, they are not running away with the game and having everything tied to whether their abilities up.
Right, and that's something else you got to look at is, you are effectively eliminating a decent chunk of the starter kind of, oh, let's go risk our necks for, 25 gold in this goblin cave or whatever, grabbing a couple crap weapons we might be able to sell. Instead, you're just going to have your Kender go, all right, here's 30 gold pieces or here's 60 gold pieces. And it's like, okay, well, do you guys still want to do the nope, we don't want to die, and it's like what do
Yep,
I
you
do?
lose your character drive. That's massively detrimental. Yeah, when your Kender can just like, oh, I didn't get my gold today. Oh no, I'll just take a long rest and I'll try again tomorrow, see what comes out of the prison wallet. Like,
Yeah, and
eventually they're going to strike exactly what they want.
right, and that's kind of the thing is like loot is always going to be a core driving factor for players in a lot of games. Gold, money, whatever it is, loot is at the center of it. And loot can mean anything. It can mean monetary value. Loot could be um, getting some sort of special item. Loot could be getting a piece of land. Loot is an essential core component of uh, Dungeons and Dragons.
Right, it's the reward for the dungeon part of Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you adventure, you get stuff. It's kind of a linear relationship.
Right. It's like going to work. If there's no incentive to get a raise, then there's no incentive to work hard. There's you don't get when they tell you that, oh, well, you're going to be working here at $12 an hour. There's going to be no raises, no bonuses, no nothing. There's nothing to push you to work hard. It just pushes you to do the bare minimum, and then show up and do it again the next day. Whereas, they come in and they're like, hey, yeah, we'll do reviews. You guys get raises at the end of the year and potential bonuses. It's like, oh shit, all right, I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna get my bonus. I'm gonna get my raise.
Exactly. It gives you a reason to actually try.
Right. And so when you take away a core aspect, and I'm not saying that this takes away a core aspect, I'm just saying that it lessens the value of loot, which sounds redundant almost, but it is what it is doing. It is lessening the value of loot, or what loot holds in the D&D campaign, or D&D setting. And that's something I've never kind of, I'm not going to say I hate or I ban it or anything like that. It's something I never really liked, is any type of thing that has to mess with kind of loot in any way, like distort value and stuff. That's kind of pushing it for me. It's not bad, and I can definitely see where it could come into play, but if you learn that spell and you can cast it quite a few times, and you find ways to cast it even more, it gets to a point where, yeah, now you guys turn in the plate armor for 250 gold. It's now 300 gold, and you guys keep just rerunning the scam. Yes, there could be consequences, but at the same time, it just kind of gets to the point. Okay, well, you guys don't actually need to go out and do anything. You guys literally just buy this plate armor from the blacksmith, and then you go sell it to the general merchant at a 50 gold coin markup. So like, you guys never have the need to go out and do anything else.
Right. And that has its place in campaigns, like you were saying, like with the like rundown simulators, where if you're running like a resale shop or something in your game, you could absolutely try and use distort value and try and get your business off the ground through these shady means.
Right.
Like it has its place in campaigns. It just has its place in specific campaigns, and you have to be able to determine how to handle it in games where it doesn't have a good place.
Right. Yeah. And that's the big issue, is this does not fit normal D&D module kind of stuff. You're going to break a lot with just the Kender Aces alone.
Yeah,
Um and that's very dangerous, because, which, needless to say, 5e core rule books and everything has already been broken. It's a At this point, everyone's going to have to admit at some point or another that 5e is broken. There's really too much unbalanced stuff to make it a effectively challenging and also fun experience. At this point, there are too many. I'm not saying it's bad by any means. I'm just saying that the challenge rating, if you will, has gone down significantly.
sure. And that's partly due from like players misinterpreting rules, but it's also partly DMs misinterpreting rules or just completely ignoring them. The biggest one that comes to mind is spell components. And that's one that a lot of us are guilty of, is
Yeah,
we just
yeah,
completely ignore that Fireball requires bits of bat guano. How
right.
many shops are really gonna be selling bat guano, even if it is used to cast a popular spell? You can't expect everywhere you go to carry this specific turd.
Right. And when you're running modules, it's fine and dandy. Typically, it'll tell you exactly what shopkeepers are selling, this and that. But when you're trying to run with the official rules in a homebrew setting, it gets a lot tougher, because now you have to keep track of what every shopkeeper has. You have to come up with all of their inventory and everything, and that can be really tedious, as well as kind of a hassle when you've got six adventurers walking into your shop and all of them want something different, and now you're trying to be like, okay, well, you want this, how many things are you going to sell? Are you selling 100 different items? Are you selling 5 different items? So that's where I get spell componing, I guess, for a lot of people, kind of falls out of practice, which honestly it shouldn't. And like you said, definitely, there are things that both the players and the DMs do that kind of make it easier, obviously. But there are also things that the rule books bring into place, such as the customizing your origins and stuff from Tasha's, that really can give it a broken type of easiness.
Yeah, definitely. And Tasha's is the main culprit, of course, but man, even back in like Xanathars and stuff, introducing let's see here, Clockwork Soul is
Yep.
going to be a big example.
Yep.
From Tasha's, the Graviturgy and Chronergy wizards.
Yep.
Um, let's see, there's just so many instances over and over. And of course, UA is released for playtesting, but not everything makes it through UA to be playtested. Not everything's done well enough. Honestly, it's like we say it all the time where 5e is completely unbalanced, but it's been so long that it's been unbalanced that it's something that's expected by now.
Yeah,
And you just
it's
have to
part of the
roll with
norm.
the punch. Yeah, yeah, just have to roll with the punches at this point.
Yeah, and uh, yes, definitely. But I also believe that they're kind of getting in this situation where, at least I have not heard of sixth edition even being talked about. Yes, I hear rumors and that, but I don't hear any official statements or any, hey, yeah, we're actually working on it or anything like that. It seems like they are going to leave 5e as an open ended kind of segment that they can just keep adding content to. For instance, I know one video game publisher that does this, Bungie, who makes Destiny. They do this. They release the base game and then they release DLCs for years to come. I think they're on their third, maybe fourth year now of just releasing DLCs since the game launched, instead of just making another one, which totally cool. But at some point, those DLCs stack up too much, or the books stack up too much to where there's just too much going on. It would be better if you were to make another edition and build off that edition.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know about fifth edition specifically though, because they have, I mean, the numbers don't lie. 5e has been the most popular edition of D&D by massive margins,
Oh yeah,
which
for sure.
it's kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing, because it does give Wizards of the Coast a sense of, I don't want to use the word complacency, but that's kind of the best way to put it, is they're resting on their laurels. It feels like they don't need to balance their encounters correctly. They don't need to balance their new UAs correctly because they already have a loyal fan base for this. And quite honestly, we're too lazy to switch to Pathfinder or something like that, or another edition that actually is trying to keep things the way that they were initially intended to be.
Right, right. There's too many friendly options that even it's hard for the DMs to kind of look at it and be like, yeah, no, this is garbage, because there's so many opportunities and options in here that, for instance, me as a professional DM, there's no way I'm going to look at 5e and be like, this thing's a pile of shit, because it brings people in. Its open availability and customizability is what draws people into it, and the ability for people to come in and really just be whoever you want to be is so vastly enhanced in 5e because of all the brokenness of just allowing extra stuff and different things and different features, traits, backgrounds, this and that. There's so much here that you can literally have 1,000 people in your game and they will each be different in one aspect or another. There's a chance for each of them to be different, whether it's a different background with a different class or a different race or a different feat. There's just so many options to have different um, tailored characters that really fit what you're looking to play. That's what draws people in, is like they're like, oh well, is it possible to be kind of like a I don't know, Power Ranger, for instance. Yeah, sure. You come in and be a Power Ranger. You dress up in, knight's armor. You're a paladin. You do some cool tricks. You get some cool feats. And there are too many things you could do in this game. For instance, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They've got the tortoise race or whatever it's called. Boom,
Yeah, the
done.
total. Yep.
Um, I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to find a way to make Master Splinter if you really wanted to. What is it, the Were Rat or whatever?
Yes.
And it's just there's so much customizability with 5e, and it draws people in because it's so welcoming in terms of Um, what's the word I'm looking for, man? I've been trying to think of it. Uh, uh, but basically, it's accepting of everyone. You know, it's accepting of everyone's ideals and ideas of creation.
Right, and being able to live out your fantasies as like Son Goku even, or like popular, like you were saying, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, just play a monk turtle, the way the Kensei for the various different weapons that they use. Like it's it's handed to you on a platter basically. There's so many people that make content that's just dedicated to how would you build X character in Dungeons and Dragons. There's people making whole video game series of worth of characters in Dungeons and Dragons. There's a channel I know called Dorans and Dragons that's doing exactly that for League of Legends.
Yeah, and it's you got to look at 5e for what it is. It has drawn in probably the biggest crowd. It is the most welcoming to everyone. It is the most accommodating to everyone. However, it is the hardest thing for a DM to look at in terms of, as far as I know, at least in terms of the other editions, the hardest one to look at and be like, what do I have to do to A, balance, and B, create an interesting set of encounters, whether it's RP or even combat encounters? What do I have to do? What work do I have to do on my end to make it engaging for my players?
Yeah, and keeping the engagement of the players with all of these different unique character concepts behind them, where somebody who's playing a character that's based around going back to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ideal, maybe they're just trying to protect their home or something like that, versus a character who's playing somebody based on, say, I don't know, the Penguin from Batman or something, and they're there, they just thrive on chaos. And it's all these different people and their different backstories, their different ways of playing, and having a DM that can incorporate something like that is few and far between.
Right, and it's tough. It's tough to find a good balance because just like Quid, one of the people that was in our Friday sessions, that we actually had to ask to leave just because it wasn't working out, and difference in kind of the way we were trying to travel. It's tough. That's why I always encourage people to never be mean and never feel like anyone's trying to be mean when they ask to leave a campaign or are get asked to leave, because at the end of the day, everyone's just looking for the best table for them, and you can't sit there and actually you can sit there and just deal with it and trudge along. But I never want that for anyone. I never want anyone to come into my campaigns and be like, this really sucks, I'm gonna stay here. I don't want that. If my playstyle is not working for you, if the group dynamic's not working for you, yeah, ask me to leave or ask if I have any suggestions for other games or other times. I am always welcome with helping people find other games. I'll give them recommendations on sites they can go to, what to look for, what they are looking for, and where to go to find that.
Yeah, and as much as it may not feel good initially, whether you have to ask to leave or whether you ask to leave, it's it's for the best in the long run for everybody. And it just comes down to you have to be able to accept the criticism that somebody's going to give you.
Right, and that's the hardest thing, at least for me, is because I never want it to feel like it's a personal attack, because we're not trying to attack. We are literally trying to find a experience for you that works, because I want you to enjoy Dungeons and Dragons. I want you to go out and have fun playing these RPG tabletops. I want you to have your moments in the sun. I want you to get into role playing and stuff like that. I want you to have a love for the game like I do. But if you're not finding that at my table, of course I'm going to have to try and help you find another table or ask you to leave, so that way you have the opportunity to go out and search for another table, you know? Um, but that's the biggest thing, is communicating that. As long as the DM, which I'm not saying DMs are infallible and perfect, there are a lot of bad apples out there as well. There's even more good DMs, more friendly DMs, but there are a few bad ones, so you got to kind of gauge the situation as it is. But reach out to your DM. More times than not, they will be more than happy to work with you to figure things out because, you know, that's the biggest thing that we try to teach as a community as whole is we're here to be friends, be friendly, help each other out and figure things out together because at the end of the day it's a game. We all want to have fun. We all want to involve ourselves and contribute to it.
Yeah, not only is it a game, but it's a team game between yourself and the DM, yourself and the other players. You're all working towards a common goal. You're all just here to have fun.
Right, and you're here to have fun, to tell a story, to have memories, and you can't have that if you just aren't engaged or you're just not having fun, like there's nothing to it. I will never ask somebody to leave because I hate the player. There will be times I will ask them to leave because, obviously it's not working out, conflict of whatever. But you talk to me, I will be more than happy to try and help you find another game. If you talk to me, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to you and say, hey, this is what's not working out. This is why you're clashing with the players. Why are we clashing? And, I'll get a sense from where you're coming from. And I'm more than happy to work with you. I'm more than happy to change uh, my gaming style or my DMing/GMing style to help better fit what works for you and the party as a whole. But you got to realize it is not just one. We are all the sum of our parts.
Right? Everybody's here working to have fun, and you have to be willing, more arguably more importantly, you have to be willing to give your opinion, but you also have to be willing to receive an opinion too. It's
Right.
it's a two-way street.
And a lot of times, from a DM GM standpoint, it feels like I don't want them to feel like I'm attacking them, but it makes me feel bad because I hope they don't take it that way. Because that's not what I'm trying to do. And I'm the type of person that anytime I have to be confrontational, I start getting nervous. I feel bad because I don't want to be confrontational with anybody. I don't want to tell somebody that, hey, you're not working out with the party, get the hell out. I don't want to be in that boat. I never want to be in that boat. It's always the most like terrifying thing for me. But as a DM/GM, that is my job. I am the facilitator. I am the judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to rules and everything else. Um, yeah, a rule says one thing, but for instance, in my games, I play as rules interpreted. So I look at it, it may say something, but I may fucking think about it differently in my head. So I then go and turn around. And I'm like, nope, we're going to go with this because it's going to make the game flow better. And that's something I tell everybody is I play as rules and interpreted, meaning I read it. How I think it goes is how it goes. And then afterwards, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. We'll correct it, make sure it's different for next time. But, the flow of the game, I want it to keep going. I want everybody to keep staying engaged and stuff. And I'm not going to sit there for 10 minutes and debate something.
Right, everybody's got to have a chance to have fun, and if you're stopping every 5 minutes to go and check a rule, then that can stop some people from having fun. So it's really important to not only preserve the fun of the players, but the flow of the game.
Right. And, it's I'm not going to say it's impossible because there are a lot of more diehard fans of D&D than me. Um, but it is very hard and very unlikely you are going to find a DM that knows every spell, every rule, every word. It's just it's not going to happen. The chances of that are super super slim, and even when you see these people on YouTube talking about, oh yeah, this spell does this, they have all of that stuff looked up and written down so that way they have it prepared. There's very rarely, with so much content being in 5e, very rarely they know every little detail about everything. So yes, a lot of times the DM's going to look it up, go for the ruling that they believe is read, and move on from there.
Yeah, and if you want your sense of proof of this concept, look at Critical Role. They're a perfect example. You have like the Matt Mercer effect on full display in there with the Matt Mercer. And he's constantly like he'll have a really good idea of what stuff does, but he's constantly asking his players, "Hey, what does that do? Hey, what's the range on that?" Like he's been playing for a very long time and has a very good grasp of the rules. nobody's perfect, especially not people who are under pressure. Like the GM has to take care of his own monsters and everything, and he's trying to help you run your own characters just to keep everything moving uh like cohesively.
Right, there's a lot to consider, the conditions that certain monsters are under. For instance, what I do in my campaigns is if you guys hit a crit, but it's not enough to kill them outright, you guys chop off a limb. So now I've got to take into account that they no longer have a leg, so they're going to have to crawl, meaning they get half movement, or they no longer have an arm, so they can't take the second attack. And so that's stuff I say out loud to the players even sometimes, because a lot of times I will forget the next time it comes around. There's going to be an instance where I forget that monster no longer has two attacks, because yeah, I write it down in my notebook, but a lot of times I'm staring at my screen trying to figure out the next move for the other five monsters. So
Right.
it don't don't make a habit of correcting the GM, but when they do say something, be like, "Oh, hey, you did say that they have only one attack now, right?" And when my players say that to me, I'm like, "Oh, yep, you're totally right. Yeah, scrub the last attack. He doesn't hit." And I'm totally cool with that type of play style. But when it comes into play where I'm looking at it and I look at Firebolt and I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't say it has any disadvantage range, so there's no disadvantage. Another player's like, well, all magic range has disadvantage. And it's like, okay, dude, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. From what I'm looking at, Firebolt literally just says 120 feet. It does not say anything about disadvantage on the spell itself, so there's no disadvantage at 5 feet.
Right. And even if it does say disadvantage on something, generally it's the DM being helpful towards the players with these rules, not opposing. So why are you trying to hinder your own party's performance? Like
Right.
it's all for the common goal, just to help your fellow player by going along with it.
Yeah, and to break the kind of wall that everyone has where the dice decide everything, that's not always true. A lot of the times the DM will decide everything. Fudge and dice rolls or whatever it may be, because at the end of the day, he does want you to win. He does want you to have that victory. But, in my instance, I want you guys to work for it. I don't want you guys to instantly go in and for a crit kill my boss like someone I know, Vern. Um, but I want you guys to go in, hit them, get hit, and have a battle. Have a tough brawl, and then when I feel it's right, that's when I throw the monster at you guys to fall to his knees and you guys decapitate him. Because at the end of the day, I want you guys to have fun. I want you guys to win. I am on your side. So if you know, for instance, when I put a monster in there that has multi attack, if it's a CR3 and you guys are only level 2, I put him in there because I'm going to change, obviously, some of the stuff he does. And something I have seen, not in my campaign, but in a campaign I watched over, was someone was like, wait a second. I believe it was the Imp. So the Imp, which is a monster I actually use in my Silver Dawn campaigns, um, they said, "Oh, well, the imp does 3d6 damage when they fail their con save or whatever," and the GM at this point was like, "Well, I changed it a little bit because I don't want you guys to take 3d6 damage right off the bat, because you guys are like, I think they were like level 3 or 4, and because that would literally wipe almost half their health with 3d6. Not to mention they become poisoned and everything else. So I was watching as this DM and this player just went back and forth about it, and I'm like, whoa, that's that's an instant violation. That's a no-no.
Yeah, and not only does confrontation like that, it creates a negative like feeling for the players. It also just grinds everything to a halt. It breaks their immersion. You're there, you're in your character, you're feeling this combat, you're scared for your life. There's no pause button. You don't have time to argue with the person who's about to take like has this gun to your head and is about to blow your head off. You don't have time to discuss, wait, you have disadvantage holding a gun to my head.
Right,
Try doing that in real life. It's not gonna work.
right. And that's kind of that real sense of involvement and interest and just being into the game is, boom, 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 boom. Keep going, keep it rolling. Don't sit there and argue with your DM, yes, after the session, be like, hey, I noticed you did this. Is that correct? I'm just trying to make sure. And then, yeah, if you've got a good DM, I will say, he will admit to, oh, I didn't know that. Let me look it up. Let me make note. I'll make sure to remember that for the next time. This or that, or he'll give you a reason. Oh yeah, that's intentional. That was something I was doing, and then at least you get your closure, and you guys can work it out. Obviously, the biggest thing is be polite, be respectful. Know that you know it's just another person at the end of the day, trying to have fun, same as you.
Yeah, that's it. All comes down to it's not the DM versus the players, it's the DM plus the players. You're there to have fun. Just let you guys have fun. Don't worry about it.
Right. I will say that there will be instances where the DM is definitely going to challenge and test you. He's not trying to be against you. He's just trying to make it engaging enough to where you don't get bored with the you hit, they hit, you hit, they hit, you hit, they hit end combat. You know, there's a lot that goes into kind of creating an engaging combat experience. One of the big things is, oh well, it doesn't just have to be combat. A lot of the times it is just combat because a lot of people just want to fight. There's no really alternatives. It's really tough to create some type of chase map. There are alternatives out there, but it is really tough to pull off. And it's really tough to do alternatives. So that's why it's a nice flavor when the DM steps in and is like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and make me a whiz save," and everybody's like, that's kind of a big deal, and that's where kind of being intuitive with combat kind of comes into play. But I think that is all the time we have for this podcast. So I guess we will end it here. Is there anything you want to plug at the end of this, Brock?
Not really. I think we covered everything pretty well. Yeah, I think the final note really is just if you're going to take something away, it's communication between you and your DM, between you and the other players. You have to be able to talk things through to be able to progress the game. Just be there. It's another person. Try and have fun.
Right. Yeah. Politeness and communication are the biggest assets that you can have. Um, but yeah, dude, I don't know. You want to plug anything in terms of like sites or anything? Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Um,
Yes, definitely. The YouTube channel. I'm sure we'll have this up on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts.
yep.
We try to bring you content as weekly as possible. We're not going to get to it every week. We're not perfect, but we'll sure try.
Yeah, and if it starts becoming a thing and people want to see more, then obviously we'll try and probably see if we can make a more steady schedule of it. Um, I guess the only other thing I would put in is I'm still looking for people to fill other sessions I have. So I guess, Brock, I'll send you the link and then you can put it in the description if you're cool with that.
Okay.
Um, for my start playing, go ahead, check it out. Look and see if there's anything you're interested in or any time slots that look interesting to you. I run all types of games. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, everybody. It's been another Tiefling Talks podcast with Brock and Gage, and we'll see you for the next week.
Hope you guys have a good week.